It's got a little delay. Jennifer, what time do you have?
9:59.
9:59.
Yeah, I'm putting something in the box now. Can you see what I just posted? Can you see what I just posted in the chat box?
What time do you have over there?
It's 10 a.m. I just put re-sign for the motion. Do you want to see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Well, he needs the microphone. Oh, you have to get the battery. It's okay. I'm just getting a form. Yeah, I'm just getting names. People are signing up. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order here at the Caddo Nation Tribal Complex on January 29th, 2022. This is our quarterly membership meeting for the Caddo Nation, virtual Facebook Live due to the pandemic. We're hoping that everyone is satisfied with what we're trying to do. There may be some hiccups along the way. This is all new to us related to virtually conducting these meetings. We have to just bear with our IT and all the issues, if we have any today, to get through the process of having this meeting. I'm glad all the council members are here. We do have two that were on their way. They have some things that they have to take care of. I think they're online, right?
Yes.
And so they're online. And we do have 1, 2, 3, 4. Verna Costello is here, the treasurer of the Caddo tribe. Jennifer Reeder, the secretary of the Caddo tribe. Philip Martin, Anadarko representative, and Kay O'Neill, Fort Cobb representative. The other two are on our feed live out there in cyberspace. So we really appreciate everyone being here. And I think the first thing we need to do is we're going to verify the roll call, and our secretary is going to do that on her end. So I'll let her take care of that before we have someone provide the invocation.
We have 15 so far. 15.
We have 15 so far online. We need 5 more. So we're going to give it a second.
Okay. Hello, if you're just now logging on, please put your name in the comment box so we can count you as present. We're going to use this as our sign-in, so we need to get a quorum so we can begin. I'll just keep adding names. You can go ahead and get started.
Okay, we have a quorum, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. As people come online, We're going to keep track and keep writing names, and Jennifer will take care of that. Before we get started, I would like to ask Kay O'Neill to provide a word of prayer for us.
Heavenly Father, we come before you this day as we humble ourselves before you as a council and as a nation. And we ask you to guide us in every way. We ask you to speak your healing word over our nation, over those who have been affected by this pandemic, Father. And we ask you to be our ever-present help in our time of need. Thank you, Father, that we walk in harmony and unity today. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Kay. Again, I'm thankful to be here today. Thankful we have another day. Again, our condolences with all the families who have lost loved ones during this pandemic, and those that are in the hospital and those that are continuing to fight for their lives in the hospital today. We're going to take care of the reading of the minutes and approval of those minutes related to our last membership meeting. I do want to say something before we get into that. We do have an agenda. I'd like for us to stick to the agenda related to new business, old business, updates, and then we're going to have a open forum for tribal members for Q&A. Hopefully we can get through our agenda to where we can have some real quality questions and answers. We may not know all the answers, but what we'll do is we'll make sure that we capture those questions so that we can find those answers. I know that sometimes those answers are hard to find. It's not easy doing the things that we do as a tribal government. So y'all, everyone on the phone, online, I'd like for y'all to just bear with us as we move on throughout the day. So the reading of the minutes and approval of the membership meeting, those are online. All your reports, your financial reports have been provided by Finley and Cook. Every number that we know of outside of accounting purposes related to account numbers and cost cages, you will not find those because of cyber attacks. But what you will find is a beginning balance and an ending balance of every account related to every program that we have here at the Caddo Nation. That includes what has been expended from the Tribal Council as far as stipends related to Tribal Council meetings for the quarter. That is also on there, along with every report from the directors across the board here at the Caddo Nation. Eventually, hopefully, we're working toward a public relations department, and we'll be talking about that here in a little bit, about how we can get information to members outside of the area, outside of the districts, and into the world of Caddo people living outside the districts and throughout the U.S. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. If everyone could take a moment just to look at the membership meeting minutes for November 6, 2021, and read those. And if anyone has any questions, I think that you can type those in. Is that correct? And we'll get to those.
Turn it off. Is it off?
After everyone has had a chance to read the membership minutes, if you have a question, you can, type that question in the chat box, and then we're also going to be asking for a motion to be made to approve the minutes. Whoever makes that motion can put that motion in the chat box, and we can capture that here and write that down, as well as when we vote related to approving the minutes, whoever seconds that, and the raise of hands is going to be done by the chat box. So if you can put yes in the chat box or no, however you want to do that, if you can do that on your end, those that are live with us, we'd appreciate it. We have a motion to approve the minutes of November 6, 2021 for the membership meeting minutes by Carissa Hodge. Do I have a second? And we have a second by Charlotte Bear. All in favor, please put yes in the chat box. We're going to allow for 30 more seconds on the yes votes, and then we're going to call for no's. How many yeses do we have? We have 32 yeses. Do we have any no's? And does anyone abstain? We have 2 that abstained and 0 noes, and the voting has closed. The minutes have passed. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on with our agenda. And again, we really appreciate everyone being online. I believe the number is over 75 people online at the moment. We're hoping to continue to see this grow. We really wish that we could be here, everyone could be here in person. And with the current affairs related to the U.S. and the pandemic and around the world, the Caddo Nation tribal government as a whole decided here as your elected officials that the worst thing that we could do is put you at risk in your health. We have been fighting this pandemic for quite a while. We're hoping that everyone online and their families are safe. We're hoping that everyone online and their families that are fighting the pandemic come out of this with good news and make it. It's not easy trying to run a tribal government during a pandemic. I know that there are council members on the council that has been doing this, as well as those council members that are no longer here during the height of the pandemic in 2009 and in 2020. You know, my hats are off to them. I could just imagine what they had to go through when we're still going through this every day. I want to talk to you a little bit about the coronavirus state and local physical recovery funds. That's the U.S. Treasury dollars that we do have from the American Rescue Plan. Those funds that we have here, they're very, very tedious in what we can do with those dollars. I know that other tribes are doing other things. Those are those tribes. The thing that we want to do here is make sure that our audits are clean and that there's no findings, and that the Office of Management and Budget and the U.S. Treasury Department are very supportive and understand that we're doing everything that we can to follow the rules, spend those dollars the way that they should be spent according to the law. There is a final rule out on the spend on those dollars. We're really feel really comfortable with the final rule. That rule, as a matter of fact, came out on January 2022, and it's the final overview of the final rule by the United States government. And in that final rule, what we found out is that the programs that we initiated, and I'll give you an example, was the cash assistance to household families related to this pandemic. That was households that would apply for this assistance through the tribal government. It's just like a state or a local state or another entity that received these federal funds. Now, other states and other cities have received these dollars. They had went after the dollars just like we did. And so they have their own process and how they administer those dollars under the rules, how they see it. So every city, every state within a state, and every tribe across the United States that received these dollars, it was competitive. We did have to go after those dollars. As a matter of fact, we have a report that's due in 5 days. It's actually due Monday. If we don't get our numbers and do what we need to do related to those financial numbers and reporting purposes in that portal, and there's a portal that you have to go in and put all the numbers in. If we get that wrong, what happens is it locks you out and you're not able to spend those dollars. You're not able to have those dollars. Again, a lot of people think that if you, just some that are out there online, every day at 5 o'clock, these dollars go back to the U.S. Treasury Department. There is no dollars in our bank account. At 7 o'clock in the morning, they come back into our account. It's called a sweep account. The U.S. government cannot match. They're the only ones that can match dollar for dollar when it comes to taxpayer money. The bank cannot do that. FDIC cannot do that. My thought was that, well, with the interest of the dollars, we could take the interest, and provide economic development. Unfortunately, the interest doesn't lie with us, it lies with the U.S. government. Every day at 5 o'clock, it goes back to the U.S. Treasury Department. There's only $100 left in that account, and that account, of course, is at our bank, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, it comes back into our account. The final rule on providing cash assistance to households, we did that. We were able to make that happen all the way till December 31st. We ran that program for over 3 months. We was able to help a lot of families with $1,200 to $1,700 per household. That was this household. Those funds were for households. The same rules applied because the IRS, the U.S. government, we had to follow the same rules. So they're not our rules. They're not the tribe's rules. If we could, I know the council feels the same way. If we could take it and just say, you know what, we're just going to take it and across the board, this is what we're going to do. But unfortunately, we can't do that. There is a final rule on the spend on these dollars. And if we get it wrong, like some of the tribes, even our neighboring tribes, they have economic development, other sources of revenue, other income. If they get it wrong, they can pay back the U.S. government. If we get it wrong and we spend, $1 million that is not allowable, it's an unallowable cost, myself as well as the vice chair who signs off on those expenditures, that's a finding and that's a disallowable cost, and it also can be a criminal thing, and we don't want to see that. We do know that there are chairmen and there are leaders across the board that are wearing ankle braces because they're getting this wrong. There are findings with other tribes across the United States. Tribes are being audited by the U.S. Treasury Department, and there are some tribes in some deep water. We have a team of federal lawyers, Connors and Winters, out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. They have 200 lawyers in that firm. There are 7 that are federal lawyers, and 1 is the top federal lawyer here in the state of Oklahoma out of the top 20, top 50 in the state. They are lead senior lawyers providing us guidance as we guide ourselves through this pandemic and the use of these funds to recover as a government. So we were able to provide that cash assistance to households. You're talking about a good, almost $3 million. Those reports, I'm not going to get into the numbers because we can get into that all day. Those numbers are for your disposal. You can go into the PDF online and see what those numbers are related to the American Rescue Plan programs that we have established related to cash assistance to household families. You can see the numbers there. Also, we've been able to help with clothing assistance for families that are impacted, that have children. We've been able to help there. You're talking about, I believe, don't quote me on the number, but I know it's around 1,324 or 1,323, somewhere in that neighborhood of children that are 0 to 17. We wanted to help those children. We wanted to do something prior to the holiday. We know a lot of families are struggling financially. Based on all the reports that we have and the cash assistance related to household assistance, we had about 20% of the applications related to cash assistance, 20% of those applications where they had 0 income. And what that tells us is that there's a lot of people without work. And so what we're able to do prior to the holidays is look at the final rule related to the cost codes in the final rule and legally put in place a plan to help children that were 0 to 17 years of age. And people that 18 and up, of course, someone that's 18 could be a head of a household and would have applied for the household assistance that we had. So out of that number, that's $661,000. There are some children that did not receive that cash assistance related to children's economics. Now, if you received if your children received a check in your care, and maybe you had one child, maybe you had two, maybe you had three, some had 4 or 5, some even had 7. Each one of those children that they received a card that said American Rescue Plan Children's Economics. That is in the law. That is a spend legally related to the final rule related to children and those economics and how we can help those children. And so there are families that we've asked, we put it online, we've asked all the tribal members that are members of the tribe to provide and update their addresses, their phone numbers, their information, where they're at, because we're still trying to find those children. Once we get that information, if your children fall in that category, those children will receive that help related to children's economics. So we're still looking for a couple of hundred kids, and it's due for the fact that we don't have addresses. So those that are online, your family members, your friends that you know that know Caddo families, please have them update their information here at the tribe and send that information, and we can take care of that. The other thing that we were able to do is help with crisis assistance related to the pandemic. We do have people that are quarantined, people that they're needing some help. I'll give you an example. We had a family of 5 financially strapped. They didn't have the resources to be quarantined and be able to survive and pay their bills the way that they should. They were really impacted. We were able to help them with dollars related to the American Rescue Plan to help offset that cost and provide them some relief under quarantine dollars under the final rule. Now that we've, seen the pandemic spike, the council here is going to be discussing a way that we're going to solidify that plan in law and a resolution to be able to help our families that are in those type of crises. So I kind of just wanted to give you an overview of where we're at. The good thing, is that with the spend on those Treasury dollars, now you remember, I believe it was a little over 32 million some odd dollars that we went after for the tribe that we have. What's been expended is the good thing is that we didn't come in here and take this government money, which is taxpayers' money, and just throw it out the door erroneously. We didn't do that. There are a lot of tribes that have done that, and they're in some deep water. They're going to have to pay that money back. We don't want to be in that situation because we don't have the economic vehicles to pay that money back. Then we'd be in debt to the U.S. government, and then that would impact every source of money that we have, every grant that we have, and then we'd be right back where we started. We still have 30 million of that, and for a reason. During this pandemic, now that we've seen this spike and we don't know what tomorrow holds, we're going to plan accordingly. We've been waiting for the final rule to come out. You will know about those plans. You will be involved in how this plan works is that the programs that we have and that we develop here, you will be able to access those programs for the assistance that you need. And we're going to talk a little bit about those programs. Job placement and training outside the service area. One of the things that the American Rescue Plan allows for the coronavirus state and local recovery funds is to establish opportunity for our members to get back in the workforce. If you're looking for a job, if you are, say someone gives you a call and you got a job in Missouri and you can't get there, or if your car's broke down and you need some tires or you need a motor, something tragic has happened to where I need to get back into the workforce. I've suffered during this pandemic. We have to create the program here under the law and then create that vehicle that allows you to tap into those resources here. So we do have job placement and training plan underway. We're going to be looking at a budget within that plan of $100,000. This $100,000 will allow us to provide training or job placement dollars for our members. And so, you know, when you call us here at the tribe and you get the reception desk, you know, and maybe you want to be a carpenter, a plumber, a truck driver. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. Or maybe you know, it's a skill set, it's a trade. Maybe you've been offered a job in Tahlequah with the Cherokee Nation or something. Or maybe you have to go to D.C. and you just need a little help. Maybe you're going to open up a store, and you know, whatever it might be. That job placement and training dollars, we're carving that out as we speak. It's a legal thing. And so as we move along, those programs will be here for you as members of the tribe. And part of that, in saying that, I know there are probably some members online that's interested in this truck driving training there in Oklahoma City. We do have a tribal member that is one of the instructors, Eric Guy. Now, there are members that want to go to the training. I know that they have their own procedures as far as like what they expect. We will have those. I've asked for that information. You know, what do they have to do to qualify to be a truck driver? Are they guaranteed a job if they go through the course? And so that information is being provided by the trucking training facility themselves to my office. And what that's going to allow for any members that are interested is that financially up here at the council, we're going to look at supporting that financially. And but we also need assurances that that individual is going to fulfill that course, that they don't drop out, that they don't quit. You know, we want them to succeed. And so there's going to be a process here internally for job placement and training. And if we invest in you and we're wanting to put you back into the workforce and say on your end you just totally fail at this for personal reasons or for whatever, there could be some instances where you have to pay back the government, which is the tribal government, because we're you know, in good faith trusting you to fulfill the course. And I've been involved with the trucking industry for quite a while. I've worked personally with the Blackfeet Bear Trucking in Montana, where we trained a lot of tribal members, and you know, there's a pretty substantial bill related to that. Just here at the local Caddo, Kiowa Technology Center, just to train around 5 people, you know, from different tribes. There was an agreement between them and a trucking outfit that I helped with outside of the tribe before I came here. Just that bill alone was $100,000. Those individuals that didn't make that cut, you know, there was agreements that they signed that, well, they'd pay it back. You know, if they just went for 4 weeks, or they went all 5 weeks and then they didn't, they said, you know what, it's not for me, I'm just not going to do it. They was paying their hotel room, their stipend, their food, and then at the end of the day, that person just says, you know what, I just don't care to do this anymore. Well, that trucking outfit and everybody that was a part of that, they made some documents internally that said, if you did that, we're not going to ever train you again. You'll have to pay back the money, and you won't be working for any of these trucking outfits. Those are some of the things that can happen. But it's just really to provide some assurances for those job skill sets. Maybe you want to be, you know, a carpenter, get into central heat and air. There's a lot of skills right now. I don't know if you know this or not, and I can talk about this all day. The U.S. Department of Labor came out and said that just a couple of years ago, they'd have to empty out every one of the prisons to fill every job skill set in the United States, because people don't want to be a plumber, people don't want to be a truck driver, people don't want to be a welder, People want to, they just want to automatically go from here to the top, and they don't want to go into these job skills. And right now, there's a shortage in skilled workers across the United States. If you turn on the news, supply chain, it talks about, we don't have enough drivers, truck drivers. The price of milk is going to be probably $8 within the next year. Price of commodities are going up because the supply chain has a bottleneck. You can't get certain batteries, chips for batteries. You just turn on the news and you really start looking at this. Well, a lot of those industries are hurting for workers. What we want to do is work with the Department of Labor, work with our dollars, leverage those dollars, go after Department of Labor funds, more grant money to train and provide the dollars you need to get back into the workforce. And those are some of the things that we're working toward, even at the Washington, D.C. Level with the Department of Labor, and doing what we can to put our people back to work. So there was a, I don't know if anyone else can see that, but the community health representative, Charlotte Bear, at our CHR facility, they have health assistance through ARPA funding for help with eyeglasses, prescriptions, medical bills, hearing aids, dental procedures, and medical equipment. One time, that's $200 per tribal member application. Is online. The phone number is 405-656-2882, and they will be happy to mail you that information. I'm glad that she brought that up. There are different pots of dollars related to ARPA funding from different agencies, and they're different in the way that the methodology is ran by that agency. We may have ARPA funding for transportation from BIA for roads. That's totally different than the ARPA funds that we have from the Treasury that we're talking about here. We have ARPA funds related to health care. That's totally different than the ARPA funds that we have related to right here. Every pot of money has some form of ARPA dollars from the U.S. government because of the way Congress and the United States had rolled this out. Child care right now has an enormous amount of dollars to help with child care and child care providers. That's through that world. And so all the dollars that we have throughout the tribe and the budgets that you see online, there's some form of ARPA dollars attached to those dollars, but they're different sources from different agencies. And those agencies have in their rules how they expect you to spend those dollars related to that grant and that award letter that they gave that department. So they're all a little different with the same goal in mind, to recover from the pandemic, help our people, and then at the same time, keep everything clean to where our audits are clean. Now, we do have someone that we're going to get into more and more about what we're doing, but we do have a couple of questions on here. Invest in small new businesses. We're able to do that. We're able to look at, investment into small businesses related to the pandemic, and that's something our lawyers are talking about right now. There's over 441 pages in the rule itself, and weeding through that legally and tearing that up, and how does that work, and how do we come up with a plan? We're going to be addressing that. So those small businesses and looking at what we can do to help those small businesses is very important. The other thing is, having tribal members that live outside the state of Oklahoma who are looking for jobs and training. If you're looking for a job and you're outside the state and you find an opportunity and you need some help, call us. Let us know what your needs are, because until we know what those needs are, we can't plan for it. And one of the things that we want to do is help our tribal members that are living outside of the state, outside of this area, to get back into the job, the workforce, go to school. We have dollars related to people that want to get back into higher education, vocational training. Those are other dollars related to other pots of money. And so we can find, hopefully, where you fit as we move along. On the job training, we talked about the CDL, and there's a shortage in the medical field. I think somebody brought that up. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on. There's a shortage of medical workers in the medical field, and if you're looking at getting in the medical field, let us know. There's things that we can help with on our end, and look at those cost codes and how we're going to be able to help you get into that career skill. This is what we're going to do, because we're getting a lot of questions coming in. Let me get through the agenda, and we will take some questions and Q&A. And so I'm going to move on. If everyone can just bear with me for a moment. I know we're getting a lot of questions online. The Caddo Nation administrative infrastructure is underway. One of the things that we've been able to do is we put a host of people together related to looking at our infrastructure as it stands today, and looking at the last 40 years, the last 100 years, and looking at another 100 years where we're headed. And what I mean by that, the infrastructure of the Caddo Nation has to be put in place legally. And by doing that, we put a legal team together. Jennifer Reeder is our secretary, and she also has the MBA in law. She's a part of the team. Myself, as the chair, I'm a part of the team. And then Kelly Factor, our vice chair, she is a part of the team. Connors and Winters, our senior federal lawyers, they're a part of the team. We have 2 tribal members, Stephen Moss, who was a judge and a lawyer down in Houston, and a tribal member, and tried and cases for a long time. Those of you that don't know, he was able to put the court in place there for the Anadarko Agency at the Cfr Court, how they work and administer their court proceedings, and the judge, and how that's all set up. We have our own tribal member that was able to put that in place years and years ago. I made contact with him. He's a part of the team as well. We have Keelan and Davis, a law firm, Zachary Keelan out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, who's also a tribal member, who's part of the team. These individuals are all volunteers. This is a volunteer effort of lawyers, of business people, mainly all lawyers, all federal lawyers. They've argued 9th and 10th Circuit Court cases in federal law. They're really seasoned, and they're coming together to look at the infrastructure of the Caddo Nation, having our own law, our own court system here. They're not only having our own court system here, but our own Attorney General's office here, and codifying law here at the tribe. In other words, if we, as a tribe, pass a resolution and it's law, then we're able to go to the Attorney General's office here at the tribe and codify that law underneath the Attorney General, and put those things in place so that anyone that comes in as elected officials, if they wanted to challenge those laws, they can go to the Attorney General's office here at our own tribe and challenge those laws. Used to, it would always be that, well, I don't like any of the council. We're going to rescind that resolution. We're going to come in and we're just going to tear that thing apart. Maybe they didn't like something that a previous council did. They rescind the resolution, and maybe there was a business that they created out of that. Well, all that goes away. That has an impact on the tribe. It also has an impact of all the time and effort and the money that went into that, and it's just gone in one day because of just feelings. It doesn't have anything to do with business or in structure of the tribe. So we need law and order here at the tribe. One of the things that the tribal council and the government is doing here is putting that law and order together, going after a court system here, an attorney general's office here. We're going to be looking at the Constitution and revising the Constitution at large. We're going to be looking for your help, people at large, on this call, because we want to be able to get to a point where we amend the Constitution of the Caddo Nation to fit today's day and age in today's society. And we need to do that legally. And we need to do that with the sharpest minds that we can possibly have, and with our Caddo people understanding that we're moving in a direction to where once we put the law and order in place, if you don't have, you will have recourse. In other words, if you don't agree with what I'm doing, if you don't agree with any of the council members here, you know that there's a process. You have a process to have your day in court. You can take anything to task. You can get the things done that you want to get done personally if you don't agree with something. But at the same time, it allows us to move toward economic development, because we have a structure. We have a legal structure. And that's what banks look for. That's what entities that are wanting to invest in tribes, that's what they look for. They look at, are you stable? How are you stable legally? Is there recourse in saving my money if I invest in the tribe? And how are we going to do this together? And is it economically worthwhile for me to invest in your tribe? So those are the things that we're working on as far as the infrastructure of the Caddo Nation. We have our programs up and running. We are working on getting our Indian child welfare back, and from the BIA. They do have some job placement and training dollars. It's not a whole lot. I believe it's around $40,000 a year. We're working on 638ing that as well. Those are the only two programs left at the agency that we haven't 638 out and contracted out. But they're drafted right now. We're working with the BIA, and hopefully we get those programs over here so we can administer those for our people. So that is where we're at with the infrastructure. We're putting the infrastructure in place here at the tribe to move us forward. Veterans Affairs, I've been on some calls with the Veterans Affairs out of Washington, D.C., related to everything from housing, helping our veterans with housing, helping our veterans with medical bills, treatment, mental treatment, as well as drug abuse, opioid addiction, alcohol, you name it. There's a lot of money right now for our veterans, and one of the things that we want to do is we want to hear from our veterans online. We want to put a veterans body together. I've been talking to some elders about okay, we had a hiccup in our IT, so okay, Veterans Affairs, again, we're doing what we can there. We're having some IT problems, so if there's a little break in communication, we apologize for that. But the veterans that are out there, you know, I have a son right now in the Air Force. I don't know where he's at. You know, what's going on in the world right now related to Ukraine and Russia, you know, all our veterans, you know, I'm thinking of them as well as a lot of families are right now, hoping my son's safe just like your children, and God bless them wherever they're at and whatever detail they have. But you as veterans, if you can help us establish a Veterans Affairs Committee here at the tribe, please provide any suggestions, write to us, email us, let us know your thoughts, also related to mental health and what we can do in that area. I'm going to move on to Caddo Nation boards so that everybody will know where we're at with that. In lieu of not having a housing board because the housing board didn't have any structure as far as administratively. Now again, we get back to the infrastructure of the Caddo Nation. When the HOSDA, which is the Native American Self-Determination Act, was taken on by the Caddo Nation in the 1990s, there was an entity that was dissolved. The council at that time became the board of directors, but there was never any board of director bylaws wrote. Those are underway. The structure of housing and how that's going to work related to that board is underway. In the last membership meeting, there was a couple of people that were suggested to be on the board, and they were nominated. It was on the floor. We sent those individual letters asking them that if they wanted to be on the board, they've been nominated, please let us know if they're still interested in being on the board, and that we would swear them in within 30 days. Unfortunately, the spike in the pandemic, we didn't see that coming. They did all receive the letters. I believe I got 2 back that said, yes, they're definitely on board with us. So as soon as we can, we will seat them. But then it brought up a bigger thing. We talked about that during our last membership meeting. Because we didn't have a hearing board, we only have one individual on that hearing board. We have an election coming up in July. Is it in July? Right? And so we do have an election coming up in July. If other people want to run for hearing board, please do so. If you want to run for any of the council positions, please do so. That election will happen. And so that's something that's going to be around the corner before we know it. In lieu of all these different boards, a Veterans Association board, a housing board, a hearing board, all these different boards, because the structure hadn't been here at the tribe, one of the things that we were able to do was we passed a law here, and we talked about it at the last membership meeting. That law is now in place, that the Cfr Court, they're in Anadarko, Oklahoma. You're able to go there today, and you're able to seek recourse related. If you have any disputes related to any employees that we have here, if you have a dispute against any department, if you have a dispute against me, if you have a dispute against any of the council members, if you have a petition and you want that petition to be heard, if you whatever it is that you have that you feel like you're not getting your due diligence here, you're able to go now to the Court of Indent Offenses and go to the court clerk and file there. You're able to, and what happens is it keeps everyone honest, including myself, including the council members here. For so long, if you had a petition to remove a council member or to remove a board member, or you was disgruntled, you wasn't getting the help that you need, and we've seen the chaos that's caused over time. It was the end-all and be-all. The council would either throw it in the trash, it wouldn't get heard. There was takeovers within the tribe. We can talk about all that nasty stuff. We don't have to say names, and we don't have to get into that. We have to take ownership of it and realize that we cannot afford our people to go through this anymore. So in lieu of having our own court system, in lieu of having an attorney general's office and structure here, our recourse right now is the Cfr Court and that magistrate there. They have jurisdiction. We've allowed them to have jurisdiction only until we have our own court system here. Once we put that in place here, we will take that back here in the tribe to have that here for our members. But until then, we are working with the federal government to establish our own court system and our own law related to how we function as a government. So every voice in the Caddo Nation can be heard, whether you agree with me, whether you agree with any of the council members or not. You have a voice. And if you don't feel like your voice is being heard, you have recourse. You can go to the Cfr Court today, and you can file anything there, and trust me, that's going to work so that we can have eventually our own system here. But until then, everyone, we're all on the same page. It's a 50-50. It's a balance. It balances everything out. It keeps everybody fair, including us on the council. So I wanted everybody to know that that's been done. It has been stamped in at the agency, according to our Constitution, all the resolutions and minutes are at the agency. If if you want to go down there, they're more than happy to help you look at anything that any of us are doing here. As far as what we've been able to do, we've allowed the United States government to have a way to resolve any disgruntled members' viewpoints under the law, and so we're glad to see that. We're really glad that you have recourse now, and everything's fair for everybody. So, in getting to the boards again, we're going to be filling those boards, and until then, all those boards and everything that we don't have in place, that's why the courts have that in place now. We acknowledge that these certain boards and things aren't in place, and we put that in the law, and now that is with the Court of Indent Offenses, and we established that rule there. Old business update. I know we got a lot of people wanting to say some things, and I'm reading some of that stuff. But old business update, we'll get through that. I want to give you an update on the casino building. I know that there's been a lot of chat about that over the years, and I'm going to run that through just a little bit. Now, with everything that I've said up till now, you got to remember when we came into office, there was nothing but brick floors and walls. The place was empty. There was no resolutions, there was no minutes, there was no shelves, there was no cabinets because of the pandemic and things being shut down for a good year or however long. I think it was over a year and a half. And with all the construction here, things were in bins and in storages, and we're rebuilding. We're have to put everything back together, and so a lot of stuff we don't have. It just we're having to reconstruct, find those things. What resolutions and laws wasn't at the agency was at our CPA's office, Finley and Cook. What they don't have was sitting in someone's office, or what they didn't have was over here, was in a box, in a storage, or it just don't exist. And so we piece back together what we know right now as far as an update on the casino building. That's pretty thick. We've been able to work with our lawyers there at Connors and Winters. We have probably a good almost half a foot of information now, all the way from the state, from gaming, from contracts to subcontracts to things that we see how this all went down. The building itself, I will tell you that it's my personal belief that the building was built in a way that there was a high cost related to that building as far as material, time and material. I don't believe that the time and material is what went into the place sufficed the invoice. Now, the invoice that was provided to me related to that building was $4.7 million. So the construction company that built it is saying it cost us $4.7 million to build it. I don't believe that there's $4.7 million in the building. However, we're working with our bank to do an adjustment and really look at time and material and expense the year it was built and kind of come up with a figure to see really what it really would have took to build that building. With that said, $4.7 million, not a full turnkey project, is what that building actually took, is what the construction company's saying that they put into that building. They signed an agreement with the Caddo Nation tribal government, the previous administrations, and what happened was that agreement was signed for a loan. It was a loan not for 4.7 what went into the building, but 9.4 million. Don't ask me why the numbers are different. I do know that's the case, though. That's a fact. The 9.4 million with interest had a payout of 11.4 million. When I got into office, the company that built that demanded that we pay them immediately, thinking since we have dollars from the American Rescue Plan, we can pay them off. Unfortunately, the American Rescue Plan and the financial recovery funds from the government related to state and local tribes doesn't allow for us to pay previous debt. That's a disallowable cost. That would be a finding. We could get into deep trouble. So I had met with the owner of the construction company who built the facility, and we know that there was some discussion, and we found out that there was some discussion that the building, they would settle for $1.2 million. Now, there was also an agreement that was signed by the previous chairman related to that $1.2 million. He demanded that the government here and myself pay that day. We were threatened by him with lawyers. Unfortunately, there was no minutes related to that decision in paying that. There was no, it wasn't on the agenda, on any council agenda. We did find the minutes for that day related to when that agreement was signed, along with the agenda. It wasn't on the agenda, therefore it's silent. There was no minutes on that decision, but there was a signature that he had from the previous chair on that agreement. Now, whether it was a fixed signature or that person's signature, we don't know that. We do know that we're not going to be treated like that, and that's not going to happen. And so I had met with him personally, and there were some issues related to that. And so we sent him a letter, and I met with him and said that we're not starting at $11.4 million. We're not starting at $5 million. We're not starting at $7 million. The cap is now 1.2. Although the signature on that agreement is questionable. There was no minutes, and the government didn't decide on any of that, which makes that agreement invalid. So therefore, you can want all you want, but here's where we're at. That cap is now 1.2. It's not moving anywhere else. I did ask the gentleman what he would take for us to get out of the situation that we're in with him, and if in real life, if I could write him a check right now, how much would he take? He said he'd knock off another $200,000, which makes it, $1 million. Well, I don't know. I know we probably have some business people on line. People just don't knock off 200,000, or cut off, say, well, I'll give you a break and knock off 500,000 or $1 million. It was a scam. Probably the gentleman that was able to build this facility, he's what they call a shopper, and it was just a big mess. He has been threatening us. It is something that, as a tribal government, we are going to have to clean up. But he also knows that this tribe's took their gloves off, and we're going to fight that fight. We're going to do what we need to do to resolve the situation legally, ethically, and morally right, and we're going to get it done. And right now, as it stands, just for the building itself, that doesn't account for any money that transferred or any administrative dollars that went to the Gaming Commission or any questions that anybody have online. I'm just talking about the building itself. $1.2 million is where we're at. We know that he would take $1 million right now. There's still a debt on the building. In that agreement, also, our sovereignty was waived. If that agreement would have been in check, and it wasn't, what I mean is, if it was legal, he could have came after our assets and took us into court. I found out who wrote that for, the tribe, and that attorney who wrote that. That was the worstest piece of legal work I've ever looked at. It basically gave our sovereignty away, that they could come in and take us to task. He did try it. He gave it a good shot. But what he found out, and his lawyer found out, is that we've hired the best lawyer in the state of Oklahoma to resolve this, and that's where we're at, and we feel real good about that, and but we're still going to have to clean it up. That is where we're at with the building, there at the casino. The store is still running. It's just breaking even. There for a while, it was just a debt. It's this, continued debt. It's basically we were paying people to work there that was just costing the tribe. So we're hoping that, as we move along with the infrastructure of the tribal nation, the infrastructure of the store, is going to be in place as well. What you're going to see there, if you're around here, you're going to see that eventually we're going to have new dispensers. That's underway. And all dispensers, we're also looking at doors where you don't have to touch them because of the pandemic. They're automatically going to open. And so the store looks a lot better. We're hiring people. We're still dealing with the pandemic. You still have to wear a mask if you come into the store. If you don't have a mask, you can't come in just because of the spike of the pandemic at the moment. Update on housing. I just want to let everyone know online that if you've been having problems, with housing, please bear with us. We've only had, like 1 or 2 pots of money. I believe now we have like 5 pots of money. We only have like $40,000 from the U.S. Treasury Department for housing. That was only 10% of the money. That is not the dollars here for the tribe. That is its own separate money from the U.S. Treasury Department related to housing and urban development that was calculated by the U.S. government. They only provided 10% of those dollars to our housing entity, which is only $40,000. That's not a whole lot of money, but it does give us a start. When they give us the rest, I don't know that. We haven't heard from the U.S. government at this point when they're going to allocate the other 90% of the money. Update on the district reps. We came up with a plan. We've heard from a lot of our tribal members that'd like for the district reps to hold meetings. I think that we've done very well getting to a point today where the district reps are looking at having quarterly meetings to start there in their districts, and we're going to be funding those quarterly meetings here at the tribe for those districts to offset costs for rental of the building or for food, and to help them facilitate their meetings in their districts. We're hoping to see more and more of that, and you participate. So there is a plan in place, and please talk to your district representatives about that. We also are talking about representation outside the state of the current affairs of the tribe right now, related to our Constitution. To have representatives represent the tribe outside the state, outside the districts, we have to amend our Constitution. So we're looking at July, the election, that this legal team that we have in place can provide some legal work that we can put some of this stuff on our on the ballot during this upcoming election, so we can take care of some of this stuff. And so we're really excited to know that if we can get some of this stuff done now, in between now and the next election, we can have some of this stuff voted by you, for you. What's that? You're right, in the secretarial election, so that we can get some of this stuff taken care of. So that's where we're at. I really appreciate everybody being online again. I know I've said, maybe not enough. Maybe I said too much. I'd rather have more than not enough. And we have a lot of people that have a lot of questions. Our secretary is reading those questions. We're going to get to some of those questions related to Q&A, related to our tribal forum. And so I'm going to pause, and we're going to take a look at this.
Am I on? Can you hear me? It's on. Okay. Okay. It looks like some of these questions have been answered, so I'm looking for, I saw some in here. that need. Okay, so Susan Buck had a comment about the casino. How about the gentleman you were talking about? He donate the building or part of the balance to the tribe and take a write-off. Has that been about the casino? So how about they donate the building or part of the balance to the tribe and take a write-off? Has that been discussed? Yeah, the casino building. Casino building. Is that something that you've looked into or you could follow up on maybe?
Yeah. So explain that question again. What did she ask?
Let's see if it's on the screen.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just so that everyone knows that is online, there was a question, about the casino building, and the question was?
Oh, well, I just lost it.
Yeah. Where's that at on? It's on your one. Okay. There was a question about the gentleman who built the building, if he would donate the building and take a write-off. Unfortunately, no. He's not going to take a write-off because he don't own the building. He don't own the land. He don't have a leg to stand on. This was an erroneous agreement signed by a guy who shysted the tribe. So he doesn't have any recourse. Even if he took us to court locally, got us into court, and he won. They couldn't even go after restitution from the tribe because we're a sovereign nation and we didn't give that sovereignty away. So he's stuck. Now, since 2016, he's never demanded the money like he has today. It's just that he's trying to do something that he knows that he can't get done, and he thinks that we're ignorant over here and that we're just going to play and march to his tune. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay. Also, Diana is asking me if the citizens will have to vote on expanding the tribal council membership. The citizens would have to vote through a secretarial election to expand it to out-of-state representation. And that's something that we'll be working on the committee.
Right. Yes. So will the citizens have to vote on expanding the council membership? That would be a secretarial election, and that would be a process related to that.
For out-of-state.
For out-of-state. Those legal questions like that, Diane, will be answered by our legal team. So any questions that people have related to what you just brought up, please continue to share those. We're hoping to get online eventually a 1-800 number where you can call and provide comments, suggestions as we move our tribe forward, so that you can have a portal that when we're not around and we're all working, you can dump those questions in there, and so that we can go through them. So we're going to address that with the legal team. So I appreciate the
email address too.
What's that?
An email address?
Yeah, or an email address. We're going to set that up with our IT guy, as far as how we capture that information from our members and deal with whatever the issues are we need to deal with related to the infrastructure of the tribe.
Right, and any new policies that we create or any proposed amendments to the Constitution, we will send those out to the members for comment and for input. They'll be posted publicly, probably on the website, the Caddo Nation website, for comment before, to help us fine-tune the policies that we come up with from any of the committees.
Now, there's a couple of things on here, too. A lot of people are asking about dances and sponsoring dances, and after COVID, are we going to have plans to have a dance and all that? The question is yes. I know there were some plans to have a dance here at our facility. Unfortunately, to keep everyone safe, the committee called that dance off. But springtime, hopefully the pandemic recedes and, when we can do those things here as far as supporting the dances and those events, the tribal government would like to do everything that we can to support financially and morally, and be there in attendance and help, because that's how we're going to perpetuate our culture, is by being involved in all these dances and events in our tribe.
What is the status of the ancestors' remains in Texas?
So the status on our ancestors that were dug up at Bodark Lake, we have over 200 sets of remains that were dug up in that state. One of the things that we're looking at is the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Rights of People. We do know that the lake project is a multi-billion-dollar lake project. Unfortunately, it was at the expense of our ancestors in digging our people up. It's against our custom to dig our people up. It is against our way to move our people, and it's a taboo for us to do that. Unfortunately, the laws that are laid out on how these projects work, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, has an agreement that was signed off on a chairman 2 administrations ago, and then an MOA that was signed off on the last chair of the tribe. That those are legal things that were signed off on related to the project, under certain laws and preservation laws. However, that's besides the point. You can't impact us as a tribe and expect us to be okay with it. So the discussions right now that I'm having is with the Attorney General's office in the state of Texas and those political wigs in the state of Texas related to relief. And how we're going to get that relief is, going after those individuals that supported that bill and do what we can in Texas to wake up Texas. And right now we do know that they do want to donate land for a reburial area. There is conversation about them donating us land so that we can have a presence there at the lake, so we can have people that live in Texas or live here or anywhere in the country that can go there, and we'll have our own piece of land there for dances, maybe for economic development that's there. They're willing to provide at least 5 acres there at the lake for the Caddo Nation. But right now, where our ancestral remains lie is that under federal law, they have to write the reports, they have to do all this work, and then when they get to a certain point, we're eventually going to rebury our ancestors and those remains. They're closest to the lake where they come from, in an area that's going to be a keep-safe cemetery that they're going to manage and they're going to protect. And so the other thing is, using the UN Declaration of Indigenous Rights to get some more action related to, you can't just dig our ancestors up and think it's okay because you need water. We all need water. We have to have water to live, but it's at our expense. So at the end of the day, there's going to be a cost element related to that. I don't know how you'd put a cost element on digging up our ancestors, but the state of Texas and the people and the political people there they know that they are going to reconcile with us the differences that project has made. So that's where we're at.
Okay, regarding the CDL training, we have a question if this applies to out-of-state Caddo members.
Yeah. What's that? Yeah. So the CDL training for Caddo members, outside the state, if you want to come to Oklahoma and you want to go through the CDL training, that's a possibility. But if you know that you could get the training in your state where you live, and that's something that you want to do, please let us know. We will work with you as an individual so that we could vet you through our system here to help you get back into the workforce. Now that goes for anything where you know that, hey, I want to go back to school, I want to go to a CDL training, I want to go to, I want to be a welder, I want to, go to a vocational school, or I got a job. Just let us know what it is that you need. Give us a call. Leave your phone number, the date that you called, and the reason why you called at our front desk, and we will get to you, and we will get you a response and see if we can't get you back into the workforce.
And regarding the Texas Department of Transportation, do we still have those monitoring jobs open?
Yeah, at the moment, as far as Texas Department of Transportation, there is no monitoring at right now related to TxDOT, but as those projects come up, we will be monitoring every ground disturbing activity, period, in 4 states, including our homeland areas, where the feds or an agency is approving a project, so that we can have boots on the ground and eyes there for our ancestors and our people. That's the way that that's going to work.
Okay, we have a member that received their ARPA funds for their children, but not the adult check for them. Who do they need to follow up with?
If you have not received your household assistant dollars related to cash assistance for your household, please contact Delita Butler. She is our a coordinator related to that assistance. If she's not in, please leave a number at the front desk. I will let everyone know that it has really been tough. We've had a lot of family, a lot of our employees, come down with COVID. We've had council members here, that just came out of quarantine. And so, we're doing everything we can to provide services for everyone. We just ask that you have patience with us as we go through this pandemic. We may not get to you at that point. We may not, get on the phone, right at that moment. But please rest assured we will take care of the things that you bring up. It's just, supply and demand. And right now we're working with a skeleton crew here at the tribe. Everyone's wearing about 10 or 12 different hats so that we can keep the doors open. There are some tribes that are totally shut down at the moment. We've never shut down totally here. We closed 3 days last week just due to deep cleaning, and that was it. Our essential workers, our employees, we're keeping them safe. We want to keep our doors open, keep them safe so we can continue to provide services to you. But please be aware that there's a lot of people that's either in quarantine or sick or coming in and out. There's not a day goes by that an employee shows up, well, my husband has COVID, well, that person has to go home. Or, well, I got COVID, I tested positive. And so right now the tribes in the west, like the Pueblo, they sent the military out there because of the spike in the pandemic. The Cheyenne, River Sioux in the north, they're getting hit pretty hard, as well as I've visited all the tribal leaders here. And Oklahoma, been visiting with a lot of the local tribal leaders here and what they're doing. And we're all trying to survive and continue to keep our doors open. And so it's not easy. And so if you have any questions, just, please call us and we'll get to them, up at the front, and we'll get your questions answered related to whatever it is you need answers to.
Okay, we have a question about Caddo, Mounds, and Alto, Texas. What's the council doing as far as supporting educational activities?
Well, as far as supporting educational activities in Alto and Mound, the Mounds there, we will support those activities, but also the Alto state parks and the state park system, they're legally out of compliance with the NAGPRA federal rules and regs because they receive federal funds. And until they deal with that, we're going to have issues with Mounds, those people internally there. For those of you that don't know this, the Alto, all the park systems in the state of Texas that have human remains and collections that are Caddo, they're out of compliance with the NAGPRA rules and regs. That can impact every federal dollar that they get, but yet they do have them. I do know that. Those items are in collections and repositories that are hidden for the most part. I've seen some of those collections. They go back to Alto. I did meet with the state parks representatives in the state of Texas related to their inventory and their summaries. They do know that we can ask the Park Service to, to penalize them related to fines because they haven't, completed their inventories. There's stuff that they have that they still have to deal with legally. Although we're willing to work with them as far as educating them that we're still alive, that we do have, a culture, we are a people, but they still have some legal things they haven't dealt with under the law that impacts this tribe.
Okay, here's a question. Is there any chance of having a food drive-through pantry again?
Yes, there is a chance of having the food pantry drive-through again. One of the things that we're looking at is USDA and funds there. I did visit with the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskins Jr. there personally in his office about how they're getting food to their areas. It's an allowable. It's really, really cool. I was there, and one of the things that I found out is the U.S. government, the USDA, provided their tribe millions of dollars for food and, for their people. Well, we want to do the same thing here. So I did make contact with the USDA. Right now, there's a lot of consultations going on and what we could do to provide food here for sustainability, health, cut down on underlying health conditions of our people like diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol. One of the things that the council here is also looking at is that facility down there that's an empty building, maybe, looking at that being a grocery store, for the area that we can provide real quality food for people and our members and reintroduce that food into our community that are traditional foods. Caddo's never had diabetes. Now we do. The only thing that we know that physical anthropologists that studied Caddo's, unfortunately, ever found that was in our DNA was arthritis. But a lot of health comes from what we eat, what we drink, food, and by having a food pantry or having a grocery store, we can also reintroduce some of our traditional foods, even in our restaurant, and look at getting USDA funds to have greenhouses to plant those foods and government funds to build that, hire people, put the food back into our community, back into our restaurant, and back into a food drive pantry or a store, which will cut down on underlying health conditions, which if you had COVID and you didn't have those health conditions, you're better off surviving through the pandemic. So those are the food portion, and having a food pantry is up and running. And that idea, as soon as people get back in place here, we're going to be discussing that in that next food pantry drive, as well as continue conversations with USDA and providing grants for our food program here.
Okay, and there's a housing question. If we have any assistance available for first-time home buyers.
So we do have assistance for home buyers who are trying to buy their first house. It's closing cost, down payment, and closing cost. That's within the state of Oklahoma. However, with that said, that's why we need economic development to help offset some other costs so we can do more for housing in people that live outside the state. It seems like people that live outside the state doesn't get the help that they need, but we need economic development to make those other things happen, because all these grants and dollars have hooks to them, and we can only do so much when that happens.
Okay, is there a possibility of preserving the community building by the dance ground?
Yeah, so is there a possibility of preserving the community building by the dance ground? Yes, there is. The building at the dance ground, which is the old community house. Yeah, there was some remodeling that went on about 4 years ago. Well, the arbors have been done there at the dance ground, but the building itself, that is very important to a lot of people. The community building, and when it was built, it was put here by some World War I, World War II people, and it was done by in our traditional way. They prayed and they burned cedar and they talked our language and they put that building there. I know some of the people that built that and was told stories on how that was done. Because of that, that building is recognized as a sacred site under 13007 executive order signed by the President of the United States. That executive order 13007 says that if a tribe attaches religious or cultural importance to an area, building, or structure, pass a law that you cannot touch that building unless you have a good reason why you want to do anything there. And so the tribal council, what they done years ago with a lot of people, if it's been forgotten knowledge, there is an executive order signed by the Caddo Nation under 13175, signed by the President of the United States, that is a sacred site under 13007, which is the Sacred Sites Act. That building and that structure. Same thing with the dance ground. That is a sacred site as well, and that is signed into law. All those records are at the agency and at the regional office of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And also the Native American church ground was deemed a sacred site under 13007. That's an executive order. It was all passed here by law here years ago, and a lot of the elders that did that are no longer here. They had the forward thinking to get that done, and so those are all on record at the BIA. So any tribal government that comes in here that thinks they can go up there and do whatever they want to do to the dance ground, the building, or that church area, they cannot do that. In other words, it safeguards the sacredness and the integrity of those areas. And so we are looking right now. We have Caddo people that are volunteering to want to put a new roof on. We did get a new stove donated to us for the community building. And right now we have some nonprofits that are owned by some Caddo people, and they're looking at donating, contributing dollars to help with that. We want to look at some volunteers, Caddo families, volunteers, people want to come out and help paint, help fix the old building up. That's something we want to do, and we're coming up with a plan to make that happen. But we have a lot of interest in keeping that old house, the integrity of it as it stands.
So we have a question from John Moss on his 501c3, and he had questions about partnering for the upcoming UN meetings. I was looking for his question. I don't see it, so I asked him to repost it. Okay. Sorry about that, John. We couldn't see it. It got buried. So he says, I have the expertise over and above anyone in the USA, proven by my letters of recommendation of over 32 years in housing and financial literacy. See some of my proven coaching and letters, etc. and then there's his email address, I mean, his website address. So what is your question?
So, John, I know you have wrote on there about your expertise. I did bring it before the council. I know I visited with John Moss about his expertise. He is a tribal member. He's willing to help us with his nonprofit. And one of the things that we need to look at as a council is how do we make that happen. So, John, I really appreciate you putting that out there. I'm definitely glad to know that you got a hold of your brother, who's a lawyer and judge down in Texas, and we're working toward the legal infrastructure of the tribe. So, John, if you could get us, we could set up a conference call between you, us, and the council and look at your nonprofit and move forward on some things. So, also, the HUD work that you've done, we need help with housing. And so I'd like to introduce you also to our housing faculty and our board that we're putting in place. So I'm going to ask that we just set up a conference call between you and us as a council, hopefully within the next, within 30 days from today. And, that gives you time and us time as we go through the pandemic as well. But let's just set up some time. Feel free to call my office and we'll get that done. And I'll have our assistant make sure that we carve that out.
Okay, we had a question come in. Can you talk about educational scholarships for college students?
Well, as far as like educational scholarships, there hasn't been anything put in place by the tribal government, as far as providing scholarships from the tribe as far as a dollar amount. What we do have is, we do have partnerships with universities. The dean of the university at SFA, for those that don't know, if you want to go to any university or college in Southwest Arkansas, including SFA there in Fayetteville, or there in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, or anywhere in that area, I had met with the dean of the university there in Arkansas in his office, and he had waived in-state tuition for any Caddo that's enrolled with the Caddo Nation to come to Arkansas and they waived in-state tuition, and they will help you related to getting into their school there. As well as we have partnerships with SFA, Stephen F. Austin University, working with them as well, looking at scholarships and stuff that they can do there. I'll be meeting with the dean of the University of OU related to what they can do there as well. And so our educational director right now is providing scholarship dollars just from BIA money that we have related to, fall semester dollars, but those are real small. It's quite a substantial chunk of money, but at the same time, until we have these universities or colleges help with scholarships or find other sources, that's something that we just need to continue to grow. The funding that we have in education is, unfortunately, those funds were expended. But what we've been able to do is we put $500,000 into higher ed and adult ed, and that allows for unfunded, unmet needs related to people wanting to go back into education and get an education, whether it's a vocational trade or go to college. And then we have the BIA 638 contract. Those dollars, are very minimal, but you're talking about maybe at an average 300,000, somewhere around that neighborhood. It's not a whole lot of money, so we have to offset the cost because we have a lot more people that want to take advantage of that. So, there's a question about, what's the status of the museum board? Well, unfortunately, the museum board was disestablished, like everything else around here is dysfunctional at times. There are people that are willing to serve on the board now. There are people that are calling, people that want to help, people that are scholars, people that are Caddo. If you're interested in serving on the museum board or helping the museum, please email me. Let me know what your intentions are, who you are, where you live, your name, your address, good point of contact, and what your interest is. Just email me directly, and as we get that information, then we'll put a team together so that we can all meet and talk about the museum, the board of directors, and getting that back up and running. Is there any more questions? And just so that everyone knows as well that's online, Ashley is with Finley and Cook. I really want to thank Finley and Cook for working with us. We do have a comptroller here at the tribe that was put in place for management reasons. This one person, the comptroller, will manage the financial end between Finley and Cook, which is our CPAs in our departments. There is no checks here. The council does not have any checks at their disposal. We can't walk into an office and tell someone to cut us a check. We can't do that. There's a purpose for that. Everything is off-site. We don't have any of that at our disposal. We have Finley and Cook. They're our CPAs, and they're in Shawnee, Oklahoma. And we do know that we had members show up there demanding money from them, because they went through one of our programs. Please, if you know of anybody doing that, we ask that you not do that. There is a process. They work for the tribal government, and that's proprietary information. If you go up there and you demand information from them, they're not going to give it to you. You'll have to come to the tribe. You'll have to come here. What they do is they process everything, but they're being inundated by some of our members thinking they can go up there, well, the tribe cut me a check, I'm here to pick it up. It doesn't work that way. There's a process in place. And so I really want to thank Finley and Cook for, doing everything that they can there to let us know what issues we have with some of our members overstepping their boundaries, and also Finley and Cook willingness to help us get things tightened with them. There's some things that they wanted to get done that we're getting done today, and there's things that we wanted to see better. So we have a comptroller. They're the chief officer, financial officer here at the tribe, that is the middle person between Finley and Cook and all our departments. Everything's signed off on that individual. If it's not in your grant, if it's not legal, if you don't have the money, it don't get done. That includes anything that we do here. Anything that we do here and expend any money, sign off anything, if it's not legally, ethically right, and we don't have it, and it's not done right, it won't get done. And so we're really glad to see that. And so I want to thank Ashley for being on the line and all what they do.
If you don't know this, Ashley may be able to answer this. Did the tribe sign up for Ssbci tribal allocations from the Treasury?
Yes, we did. We did sign up for the Ssbci tribal allocations from Treasury. We do know that Ssbci, which is the small business portion of the Treasury rules and how they look at those dollars, it's real tedious. Some of that is, loan guarantees. We have our lawyers looking at that. We signed up. As a matter of fact, we signed up twice, so we wouldn't, be left out. And then we had conference calls. We've been having conference calls about that. As far as tribal allocations and what we received and information or any numbers, we haven't got to that point. We had a big meeting with our legal counsel with Ssbci, and there's some things that they're still working on internally there with the Treasury Department related to that, and they don't even know what they're doing. Unfortunately, a lot of these agencies that are trying to respond to the pandemic related to dollars, they're still trying to figure out what they're doing. They're still creating portals. They're still creating, the management systems. Just like the final rule for the U.S. Treasury dollars just came out January 2022. So they're still creating all that. But yes, we did apply. Do we know how many members have participated in the meeting today? Do we have one here in? Okay, the highest view that we had, appreciate that question. The highest view that we had is 83. Caddo members that we had on there, you got to remember it's Facebook, and this is the first attempt at this, is 51. Okay, so it's 61 on tribal members. If you didn't sign in and put your name in the chat box, you didn't get counted. But overall, we had 83 online. If you'd like to add your name, we could capture that. Did you get Dion? He's still on. Appreciate that. Okay, we are going to, just so that everybody online that's listening, we're going to gauge the pandemic. Hopefully, the next membership meeting, we're in person. We don't know what tomorrow holds. And, please pray for all our leaders, including the people in this country that are leading our people because of what's going on in Ukraine, in Russia, and God to be with all our veterans today. And, we really take our hats off to them. Let's everyone keep safe. Everyone continue to keep everyone safe. All those that are been in the hospital, those that need help, we're going to do everything we can here at the tribe to do what we can to get you the help that we need. If we're not doing something right, please let us know. Email us, call us. We're going to come up with a 1-800 number or an email address with our IT people eventually, hopefully soon, to where you can just, any suggestions, put your name in the box, continue to let us know. And we look forward to continuing to see you and hear from you. And glad that everyone was online today, and God to bless everybody. And I think we're going to go ahead and adjourn, but we're going to need a motion to make that happen. So the floor is open for a motion to adjourn. Yeah, so everyone online with us, the video and everything that we've talked about, you can go back and watch on Facebook or the website. It's all being archived. Some of the questions that we just got in, we've answered those. So again, appreciate that. We had a motion. We had a motion by Brenda Shemami to adjourn, and Carissa Hodge has a second. I know we had several second right then, so motion was made by Brenda Shemami and seconded by Carissa Hodge. to adjourn? All in favor? You got to say yes in the chat box. I've never seen so many Caddos move so fast. That's a lot of yeses. Okay, in about 30 seconds, we're going to close the voting. Okay, we have 34 yeses at this point. Do we have any noes? Anyone abstain? Okay, so let's do this before we adjourn, right? Before we say that. Jennifer Wilson, can you offer us a word of prayer before we leave because of the stuff that we're going through related to the pandemic? And I know you've been doing what you can there at the church there in Oklahoma City. So if you can, Norman, I'm sorry.
Hi, thank you, dear Lord, for giving us the opportunity to have this meeting today. And may everyone be safe in their homes that were online. Be with those who are sick and in the hospital or quarantined at home and can't get out. Be with those people. Be with those people who have lost someone. Comfort them. Thank you for gathering us here today to do the tribe's business. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, the motion was made by Brenda Shemami to adjourn, seconded by Carissa Hodge, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.